Everybody loves ice cream. It might be the single most beloved product on earth. No villain, no downside, a food that exists only to make people happy. So here's a question that should be impossible to answer. Why does selling it destroy so many of the people who try? In 2020, one of the most beloved ice cream companies in America, a Brooklyn brand people lined up around the block for, a brand that raised $19 million and was once valued at $40 million, filed for bankruptcy and sold for $1 million. Its founders lost everything, right down to their personal savings. And here's the part that should stop you cold. In December 2025, the largest ice cream company on the entire planet, the giant behind Magnum and Ben Jerry's, did something staggering. It got rid of its ice cream business, spun the whole thing off, walked away, because, in its own words, ice cream was dragging the company down. Think about that. The biggest, best-run ice cream operation in human history looked at the numbers and quit ice cream. So what do they know that the person opening a cute little scoop shop doesn't? The truth is, ice cream was never really a treat business. It's one of the most brutal logistics businesses on earth, wearing a party hat. A war against physics, the weather, and the calendar. Three enemies that do not lose. This is the autopsy of the ice cream business, and why the happiest product in the world is a graveyard for the people who sell it. Chapter 1. The Joy Trap. Every doomed ice cream business begins with the same beautiful, dangerous idea. You make ice cream one day, maybe in your kitchen, maybe at a party, and people don't just like it, they light up. Grown adults make sounds they'd be embarrassed by. Kids lose their minds, and somewhere in that glow a thought forms. Everyone loves this, I should sell this. How could a business built on pure happiness possibly fail? That's the trap. And it's baited with the best intentions in the world. Take Ample Hills. In 2011, a husband and wife opened a little ice cream shop in Brooklyn. The ice cream was genuinely spectacular. Inventive flavors, a warm neighborhood feel, lines out the door on hot days. People didn't just buy it, they loved it. The brand became a local legend. Disney came calling to put a shop in one of its parks. Investors came calling too, eventually pouring in around $19 million. At its peak, Ample Hills was valued at roughly $40 million. Everything the fantasy promised was coming true. Adored product, hungry investors, rapid expansion, a real shot at becoming the next great American ice cream brand. And that adoration hid the knife, because loving a product and running its business are two completely different skills. And the founders would later admit, with painful honesty, that they had little business or technical expertise, and, in their own words, no real sense of how much money they were spending until it was almost gone. Here's the first lesson from this graveyard, and it's the one everyone ignores because it sounds too simple. Demand is the easy part. Everybody wanting your product is not a business. It's a beginning. The question that actually decides your fate isn't, do people love this? It's what does it truly cost to get this thing, cold and perfect, into their hands, over and over, all year, forever? For ice cream, the answer to that question is savage, and it starts with a law of physics you cannot argue with. Here is the thing that makes ice cream unlike almost every other product a human being can sell. It is trying to destroy itself at all times. The moment ice cream exists, it wants to melt. Leave it out, and in minutes, you don't have a premium dessert. You have flavored milk. And here's the cruel twist. Melting isn't even the worst part. If ice cream melts a little and then refreezes, which happens invisibly, in the back of a warm truck, in a store freezer that cycles a few degrees too high, it grows ice crystals. The texture turns gritty. The magic is gone. The customer doesn't know why. They just know it's not as good, and they don't come back. So to sell ice cream, you don't just make a product. You have to build and defend an unbroken chain of cold. From the second it leaves your machine, to the freezer truck, to the warehouse, to the store's freezer, to the customer's car, all the way to their kitchen. Break that chain for even a short stretch, anywhere along the line, and the product is quietly ruined. This is called the cold chain, and it is one of the most expensive kinds of logistics on the planet. Think about what that actually means for your costs. A company selling, say, soap or crackers ships them in a normal truck, stores them in a normal warehouse, stacks them on a normal shelf. Ice cream needs a refrigerated truck burning fuel to run its freezers, a frozen warehouse, a dedicated freezer at every single store. Backup power, because if the freezers die for a few hours, your entire inventory becomes a puddle. Every link in that chain costs more, breaks more, and eats electricity 24 hours a day, whether you sell a single scoop or not. And this isn't some theory I'm spinning. Remember that giant, the biggest ice cream company on earth? When it explained why it was dumping its ice cream business, this was its own reasoning. Keeping the product frozen made the supply chain far more costly than for its other products, like soap and disinfectant. The single largest player in the entire industry openly admitted the cold chain was a millstone around its neck, which is lesson 2. In a business, look for the cost that never sleeps. The cold chain doesn't care if it's a slow Tuesday in February. The freezers run, the trucks refrigerate, the meter spins. A cost that keeps running when the money stops coming in is the exact thing that turns a quiet season into a deadly one. And ice cream, it turns out, has a very long quiet season. Every business has good months and bad months. Ice cream has good months and months that try to kill you. And they arrive on a schedule you cannot change. Because ice cream sales don't just dip in winter, they collapse. When it's hot, people want ice cream almost helplessly. When it's cold, the same people barely think about it for months at a stretch. Your revenue rides the weather and the calendar like a roller coaster, soaring in July and crashing in January. Now that would be survivable if your costs rode the same roller coaster, but they don't. Your costs are almost flat all year. Watch what that does. Let me walk you through a simple version of the math, because this is the trap that closes on nearly every scoop shop. Say your shop's costs, the rent, the staff, the freezers humming day and night, come to $20,000 a month. Every month. 12 months a year. That's $240,000 a year in costs that show up no matter what the weather does. In the summer, business is glorious. Say in each of the 4 warm months, you pull in $40,000 in sales against that $20,000 in costs. You're making $20,000 a month. You feel like a genius. 4 months of summer, $80,000 of profit. Life is good. Then autumn comes. Sales slide to $25,000 a month. You're barely breaking even. And then winter truly bites. And for 4 long months, sales fall to maybe $10,000. But your costs are still $20,000. So every single winter month, you lose $10,000. 4 winter months, $40,000 gone. The shoulder months chew up the rest. Add up the whole year. The glorious summer made you $80,000. The dead winter and the limp shoulder seasons quietly took most of it, or all of it, back. Thousands of ice cream businesses end their triumphant year with a number near 0 or below it. And the killer detail is the timing. The losses come in winter, months after the summer cash has already been spent on expansion, on staff, on that shiny new location. You're bleeding in January with an empty bank account, waiting for a summer that is agonizingly far away. That's lesson 3, and it's brutal in its simplicity. It's not your average that kills you. It's your worst stretch. A business that's wildly profitable 4 months a year and hemorrhaging the other 8 is not a good business having a rough patch. It is a countdown. And ice cream's countdown resets every single winter. Survive the calendar, and there's still a war waiting for you. One you fight not against physics or weather, but against other companies, for a box of cold air. Let's say you beat the odds. Your ice cream is incredible. Your cold chain holds. You've somehow got the cash to survive winter. Now you just need to get your pints onto the shelf at the grocery store, where the real volume is. Simple, right? It is not simple. Because in the grocery store, ice cream doesn't live on a shelf. It lives in a freezer. And freezers are the most brutally limited, expensive real estate in the entire store. Think about it from the store's side. A normal shelf is free. It just sits there. A freezer case costs a fortune to buy, and then it burns electricity every hour of every day, forever, to stay cold. So a grocery store has only so much freezer space, and every inch of it is precious, which means getting your product into that freezer is a knife fight, and you are the smallest person holding the smallest knife, because you are not fighting other little scoop shops for that space. You are fighting the giants. A handful of enormous companies dominate the freezer aisle, and they have spent decades and untold fortunes locking it down. They have the relationships. They have the leverage. In many places, they even own or supply the freezer itself. They can afford to pay in money and in deals for prime position at eye level. Your beautiful little pint is fighting for a sliver of space against opponents who treat that freezer door like territory in a war they have been winning since before you were born. And here's the quiet cruelty of it. None of this has anything to do with how good your ice cream is. You can make the best pint any human has ever tasted, and it does not matter because the customer will never see it. It's not in the freezer, it never got in the box. The gatekeepers said no or priced you out, and your masterpiece dies in a warehouse, which is lesson 4, and it's the one that breaks the most hearts. The shelf is not neutral. In a lot of industries, the place where your product meets the customer is quietly owned by your biggest competitors, and being the best is not a key to that door. Before you fall in love with making something, find out who controls the last 3 feet between your product and the person who wants to buy it. In ice cream, that last 3 feet is a frozen box, and it is enemy territory. Beat the cold chain, beat the calendar, win a spot in the freezer war, and you still haven't met the thing that can kill your entire company in a single day. Everything we've talked about so far is a slow bleed. Costs, seasons, shelf space grinding you down over years. But ice cream carries one more danger that isn't slow at all. It's a bomb. And when it goes off, it doesn't wound the company. It can end it in an afternoon. That bomb is contamination. Because ice cream is a dairy product, kept cold and eaten without cooking, it is a perfect potential home for a bacteria called Listeria. A germ that, unlike most, can actually grow at freezing temperatures, and one that can be deadly, especially to the elderly, the very young, and the pregnant. In 2015, this stopped being theoretical for one of the most iconic ice cream makers in America, Bluebell, a company beloved across the American South for nearly 100 years. Listeria was found linked to its products, and the outcome was catastrophic. 3 people died. Others fell seriously ill across several states. Now watch how fast a beloved, century-old company can go from titan to fighting for its life. Bluebell didn't recall one bad batch. On a single day in April 2015, it recalled every single product it made, around 8 million gallons of ice cream, pulled from every shelf in every state. It shut down all of its plants, and it laid off more than 1/3 of its entire workforce overnight. The company that had been a fixture of American summers for a century was suddenly hemorrhaging so badly it had to accept an emergency investment on brutal terms just to survive, and would later pay out settlements and penalties totaling nearly $20 million. Here's why this danger is so much worse for ice cream than for almost any other business. We spent this whole video establishing that ice cream runs on painfully thin margins. The cold chain, the dead winters, the freezer war all grinding the profit down to almost nothing. A business with thin margins has no cushion. So when the bomb goes off, a total recall, every plant dark, 1/3 of your people gone, your brand suddenly synonymous with danger, there is no fat reserve to absorb the blow. The very thinness that defines the industry is what makes a single accident potentially fatal. That's lesson 5. Know the size of your worst possible day. Every business has a nightmare scenario, and most owners never do the cold arithmetic of it. In some industries, the worst day is a bad quarter. In ice cream, the worst day is a pathogen you cannot see, a recall of everything you've ever made, and a headline with your name and the word death in it. If your margins can't survive your nightmare, you are not running a business. You are holding a losing lottery ticket and calling it a plan. So, brutal physics, a murderous calendar, a rigged shelf, and a bomb in the freezer. Which brings us finally to the bodies. Let's go back to that Brooklyn dream. Ample Hills, adored, funded, valued at $40 million, expanding fast. Here's what actually happened inside all that momentum. To grow, they did the thing that sounds so smart on a whiteboard. They built their own factory in 2018 to make ice cream in bigger volume and drive their costs down. It was supposed to be the move that turned a beloved brand into a real empire. Instead, the factory did the exact opposite of its purpose. Costs went up, not down, the losses mounted, and a company that everyone loved, that had raised $19 million, discovered that adoration does not pay a factory's electricity bill. In March 2020, Ample Hills filed for bankruptcy. It laid off all 101 of its employees, and that brand, once worth $40 million, was sold for $1 million to a company that makes precision machinery. The founders, 6 months later, filed for personal bankruptcy. They had done everything the dream told them to do. They made something people genuinely loved, and the business ate them alive. And if you want to know just how deep this problem runs, don't look at the small shops that fail. Look at the biggest winner in the entire industry and watch what it chose to do. Unilever is the largest ice cream company on the planet. It owns Magnum. It owns Ben Jerry's. It has the scale, the cold chain, the freezer relationships, the century of expertise, every single advantage the little guy is missing. It is as good as this business gets. And in December 2025, Unilever looked at its own ice cream division and decided to get rid of it, to spin it off and walk away. Its reasoning, in plain terms, the cold chain made ice cream more expensive to run than its other products. The seasonality made sales lurch around. And, in the words of the analysis, ice cream was a drag. Without it, the rest of the company would simply be more profitable. Sit with the enormity of that. The best player at the table, the house itself, ran the numbers on ice cream and cashed out. So here's the autopsy report on the ice cream business and the lesson that ties the whole graveyard together. We are trained to evaluate a business by how much people want the product. Ice cream is proof that this instinct is dangerously incomplete, because desire for ice cream is nearly infinite, and it is one of the hardest businesses on earth to survive. The product was never the problem. The problem was everything around the product. The physics that fights you every second, the calendar that starves you half the year, the shelf your enemies own, and the thin margin that turns one bad day into your last. A business isn't the thing you sell. It's the machine that has to deliver that thing, cold and perfect and profitable, forever. And for ice cream, that machine is a monster. Out of business, Ample Hills Creamery, March 2020, cause of death. Everyone loved it. The math didn't. The happiest product in the world sold joy by the scoop and died by the calendar. And when the biggest ice cream company on earth quietly quit the game, it left one cold question hanging over every scoop shop still open. If the house itself folded its hand, what are the odds for everyone still playing? Some industries collapse from fraud, some collapse from their own rules, and some, like ice cream, are just brutally hard underneath a friendly face. Exactly like another business that looks like a party and is secretly a trap. Legal weed was a $100 billion gold rush that bankrupted the people who played by the rules. That story is on this channel. Why legal weed is collapsing? Watch it next.